All right, YouTube world. Let's see if this gets me a strike on my channel. So, here's the deal. For those of you that don't know, this March for Our Lives thing out of Florida with Cameron Kasky and Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg, um, it's not just happening in Florida. Obviously, they had the big march in Washington. There were several other places, a few other places, not just several, that had their own marches. And I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska at college, and we had a march. Now, let me preface this with a few things. I've been in Lincoln going to college now for about 2 years, so I know how to get around Lincoln just fine, but I don't really know Lincoln that well. That's what partially led to this. What happened? Um, I knew what was going on. I don't agree with what's going on. I don't agree with their opinions. I don't agree with them at all. So I wanted to go down and, just show that there were people that disagree with their position on this whole thing. Originally, I had a few friends that were considering coming, but they were a little hesitant because, these people do sometimes get a little rowdy. They do get a little nuts sometimes. So they were a little hesitant. So I said, here's what we'll do. We'll drive down into that area, see what's going on. If they look like they're going to be, pleasant and fine, and there's other counter protesters there, we'll hang out. If not, I'll take you home. So we drove down there, and what it appeared to be when we drove, because the cops had everything blocked off for a couple blocks on each side, so you could not get down to exactly where the protest was. So when we drove by from where we could drive by, it appeared that there was one group on one side of the road and another group on the other side of the road. Assumed that one was counter protesters and the others was the protesters. So it was like 37 degrees outside and it was raining, and I'm from Minnesota, so I care less, but my other friends were like, no, it's too cold. So I took them home. I went back. I purposely drove and parked my truck where I would be walking up on the side that I thought was the counter protesters. So I wouldn't have to walk through the protesters to get to where I wanted to be. By the time I had walked up there, which I stopped, at each of the police as I walked up there and asked them, do you know if there's any counter protesters going on, you know, stuff like that. And they're like, no, we don't really know. And then they started asking me questions. You do know this isn't an anti-gun rally. And I said, have you looked around? Every one of these posters and signs that these people are carrying, they are definitely anti-gun. Um, and since they started asking me questions, I started asking them questions, and every one of them, I asked them if they knew, what kind of legislation. They stated that these people just wanted, heavier legislation on stuff. And I asked them, do you understand what they're asking for? Well, they want deeper background checks and this and that. And I said, you're a police officer. You're telling me you don't know that's already on the books? It's just not being enforced in these situations? Well, yeah, you are right about that. Boom. Even the police had to admit that I was right. That these 3,000 people that were here protesting, and I'm the one guy countering them, I was the one who was right. So then I countered another question to them, one that I've been asking people in this situation for like a month now, and nobody can give me the answer. Wall Street Journal, about a month ago now, right after the shooting in Florida, they did an article on how many deaths in specifically school shootings there have been since 1990. So that includes Columbine, that includes Virginia Tech, that includes the recent Florida shooting. And I'm going to give you the number that now includes the one death that has happened from the Maryland shooting. Since 1990, 161 people have died in school shootings. 161 in almost 30 years. That averages out to about 5 or 6 people a year. Even the police, when I gave them the answer to that question, because most of them were like, well, it's got to be a lot. It's got to be, a ton. When I gave them that answer, their jaws basically hit the pavement. I asked a couple people. I was actually able, after this whole situation that happened to me, as I was walking away, was able to ask a couple people. Now, I tried to ask multiple people. I got a couple to actually interact with me. A couple, man and woman, that were both carrying signs. And I asked them that question. And when I gave them the answer, they left the rally. Now, the only thing that tells me is they realized that they were being ridiculous. They realized how ignorant they were about this entire situation, and they had to leave because they could no longer support that. Let me get to what actually happened to me. After talking to all these police officers and whatever, and walking around through the rally and realizing I was the only one there who was not for what was going on, I was against. I stayed on the edge of the crowd. I was right up near the Capitol, right near the steps where, everybody was coming to do their little speeches and whatever. I was right up there next to the podium, but I was on the edge of the crowd, standing 10 feet away from a couple of police officers, one who was a state trooper. And I'm standing there, and I go on my Facebook, and I go live for all of about, I don't know, a minute, maybe two. And I say a few things. And as I put my phone down and back into my pocket, this older lady, in her 60s at least, comes up to me. And she's all of about 5 foot tall. I'm 6'1". So this lady is like, she's trying to get in my face, but her head is, about chest level on me. And she is just berating me. I mean, screaming profanities and just incoherent babble, but I'm trying to pay attention to her and, sift out what she's actually trying to say to me. I'm not paying attention. While I'm listening to her, I get hit in the back of the head. I don't know if it was a fist. I don't know if it was an elbow. What? But it was definitely a sucker punch type deal. I mean, I got hit in the back of the head. And I'm sure that the person who did it thought I was going to go down. I didn't. I planted my foot and I spun around to at least see what was going on. And if it got more serious, then obviously I was going to swing back. But I spin around and I see this like 16-year-old, 130-pound string bean of a kid who has just hit me. And I'm already, in my head, it's like, what the hell were you thinking? Did you not see how big I am? Did you really think this was going to turn out well for you? Especially 10 feet away from the cops. And then I realized that this whole situation, nobody here is standing up against him. He feels that he can do whatever he wants to because nobody here is telling him he can't. Even the police stood there as I double taped. I looked at the kid, I looked at the police. I looked back at the kid, I looked back at the police. And they just looked at me and shook their heads. And by the time I realized what was going on, the kid had already left. So I turned around to ask the lady if she knew about what had just happened, and she was gone. So I decided, all right, this has very clearly become an unsafe situation for me. Now, to go back about the not knowing Lincoln part, what I didn't know was that the Capitol building sits here, then there's a street, and then there is a blocked off courtyard that goes for like 4 or 5 blocks between these couple of buildings that was absolutely filled with people who were for the rally. It was not a counter protest. It was still the same protest just going on for those blocks. So I'm now trying to walk through the crowd and get out of there because I realized I'm in a very unsafe situation. And I have my phone out and I'm simply trying to, show how many people are actually there, what some of these signs read, and there are people trying to hit my phone out of my hands. Multiple people, I mean, at least half a dozen. So I put my phone in my pocket, I walk to the edge of the crowd, I start making another video. I make that video and I leave. I go home. And I sit at home and I stew because this has done nothing but now piss me off. I've been attacked at a rally that was supposedly speaking against violence, and yet I've been acted against in a violent way. I'd go to a rally being absolutely non-offensive. I didn't make a poster. I didn't wear, a hat of any kind that was stating anything. I didn't wear a "Make America Great Again" hat or anything. I was literally standing there on the sidelines, just standing there. And I was singled out and attacked. And nobody is going to talk about it. Nobody but me is going to talk about it. It's not going to be reported by anybody, even though I guarantee multiple people other than the cops saw what happened. They're not going to say anything. I mean, there were like 3 8-year-old kids that had been drugged there by their parents that were literally 10 feet in the other direction from me, that watched this whole thing happen. You really think that was good for them to see something like that happen? And yet, nobody but me is going to talk about this. There are so many more things I could talk about that I will do in another video, because these people's ignorance knows no bounds, their arrogance, their hypocrisy, it's beyond a level of pure ignorance. It's an absolute level of they don't care. And even though all of these people, I mean, we know how connected these people are to their phones and the internet and whatever, they don't take the time to actually look up these things they're speaking against. So they simply look ignorant because they're stating things that are already in place. And when you tell them that, they don't want to listen to you. They go back to their, number one strategy of, well, I'm just going to scream my opinion louder than you're giving me facts, and that's how I'm going to beat you. And in all reality, they don't realize that they never beat us. We just realize how ignorant and stupid and lazy and a whole number of things, all manner of things. We realize how they are and how pointless trying to have a conversation with them is. And we walk away. It's as simple as that. They've never actually beat a pro-gun person. They think they have, but they never have. We've simply chosen to realize that speaking to you, talking to you, trying to have a progressive and constructive conversation with you is pointless. Because you would rather scream an opinion that has no base, is not, opinions are not strong enough to build laws, and they're not strong enough, they're not ethical enough to build laws or anything on. It is an opinion, which is fine. You can have your own opinion, but that is your opinion. It does not make you a specialist or an expert or anything. Just because you think you are, you aren't. Thanks for listening. Hopefully, I don't get my YouTube shut down for this. I mean, I'm a very small YouTube channel. It's a personal YouTube channel. If I do, so be it.